Hello, Recovering Perfectionists. I'm Claire Riley, and it's here on this show where I connect with some incredible people to have the big conversations about what it means to be tangled up in the web of trying to do everything perfectly and not really stepping into our aligned, ideal way of living and doing business. And being a list-making, freedom-seeking professional Virgo, I love getting to the bottom of what's really going on in the various places where perfectionism rears its ugly head. And I have a really strong focus on helping to uncover some really great tips and tools and tricks to get past it and get out of your own way. So today I'm super excited to show off my guest for a few reasons. First of all, this person is a heart-centered personal and business development coach. This person also has a background in athletics and hospitality and resort management. He's a motivational speaker, and they've also hosted their own TV show, which I'm sure we'll talk about shortly. But most excitingly, this person is our very first dude on the show. So welcome, James Gardiner.
Thank you, Claire. The first dude on the show.
First dude on the show. How rock star are you?
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you very much.
It's awesome to have you. And I just want to do a really super duper quick bit of the backstory. For a little while, probably the last couple of years, I've had in my head that I wanted to do some sort of mini series called The Imperfect Man, where I really wanted to chat with guys about how perfectionism shows up for men and how perfectionism in other people impacts men and your business, your relationships, your friendships, all of that sort of thing. But it's only in the last couple of months that I started thinking, like, this is really important. I really want to do this. And I've made a list of all the guys who I'd like to approach, but I hadn't kind of gotten any further. And then into my inbox pops this beautiful email from yourself saying, do you think this would be a good time to have a heart-centered guy join your podcast? And I was like, yes, I do. So it's all perfect timing. Nothing happens accidentally. And I'm really, really, really stoked that we get to have this conversation. So thanks
Awesome.
again for coming on. So do you want to tell us a little bit about you and your journey in a nutshell and who you are and what you do and all of that sort of thing?
Sure. So, James Gardiner, and I am a personal and business development performance coach. I work with a company called Leap Zone Strategies out here in Canada. We work with clients all over the world, really working on their all aspects of their business, understanding their personality, their brand DNA, how to create a strategy and implement said strategy, positioning. Everything comes down to positioning. So how do we get them to differentiate themselves and then position it accordingly to their ideal clients? In all of that, though, is ultimately everyone we work with is a person, is a personal brand. And my big thing and my big contribution is really unpacking the truth in everyone, because the truth will always, if there's a misalignment, it will manifest itself in business, guaranteed. At some point it will. And what we want to do is I truly believe in getting to the core essence of who a business owner is, and then outward, everything is congruent in every facet that they work in their business.
Sounds absolutely perfect. And it's exactly, I guess, the space that I feel really blessed to have been working in and had, some really great influential people who've sort of taught me that sort of thing as well. And about having boundaries and showing up authentically and being honest about what you want and how you want to live and who you do and don't work with. And, all of those sort of things. It has such big filters, but it's often one of those things where you've kind of got to go through the process to understand where you stand on some of those things, right? So
you do. You have to roll up your sleeves and do the deep work, right? You need to get in the trenches, and it's to get to really unpack the truth, to get to your real truth in business or in life. You have to roll up your sleeves and dive in, And the reward is magic.
Yes,
it's brilliant when you get it, right?
And it's a work in progress, right? Like I feel like so many times I have a conversation as well as, my own things where I've gone, all right, this is it. I'm so passionate about this. This feels right. This is a good fit. And then you get some period down the track, whether it's a day or a month or a year, and you're something's quite kind of doesn't feel like it's the right fit anymore. And when you open that can of worms, it can be a bit scary because you've evolved past it, or it was, you know, a great experiment, but it was the wrong direction, or it was, you know, there's some sort of misfit. So it's definitely a work in progress thing, right? Where it's not like all right, we've done that work, now we can move on with the rest of our life and never talk about it again.
So true, Claire. I mean, that's the thing is, and you know, right? We, even as coaches, we never stop evolving. People
Yeah.
never stop growing. And yeah, our truth will always be there, yet I use the middle lane analogy a lot, and so that middle lane will always evolve as we evolve, and what we need to do is just adjust the scope of the lane as we move forward in life, and as we attract new business associates or venture out or go into relationships. You know, it ultimately has to serve us.
Yeah. And so where do you start with that sort of thing? You've mentioned like personality and brand profile and brand DNA and,
Hmm.
you know, all of that sort of thing. Where does that sort of start? Do you look at things like personal values or lifestyle design, or like where's a kind of good jumping off point for people who are listening who may be feeling a bit like it's not aligned, but they're not really sure what it is that they want. They don't really, you know, there's a lot of people who in the listenership who are perhaps mums, new mums, who feel they've maybe lost their identity through motherhood and having different
Yeah.
focuses and all that sort of thing.
Right.
And they're starting to go like, all right, like, am I still the same person I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or, you know, what's changed? So where do you kind of start to suggest people, you know, start
Yeah.
looking into
If
this?
Yeah, if we're talking the personal brand, which is, the moms, the people at home, right, that aren't maybe solopreneurs yet or whatnot, it's definitely getting clear on what it is that we want.
Mm.
We have to get crystal clear on where we want to get to. Not the how. Don't get caught up in the steps. Don't get
Sure.
caught up in and getting distracted by how we're going to manifest it or how we're going to create that. No. Once we get crystal clear on what it is we want, the how will start to precede itself. And
Mm.
it's always about taking the very next step,
Mm.
right? We at Leap Zone, we're heart-led conscious business, and and because of that, unfortunately, as not unfortunately, wrong choice of words, it's predominantly women because men, a lot of men aren't we're swinging that pendulum a little bit,
Mm.
right? So we deal mostly with women and a little bit more open to this, and the conscious male is definitely growing, and we need more of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it is about getting to our own personal DNA. What makes us who we are? What are our values, right? What are
Mm.
our cultural tenets that we adhere by, that we make decisions? And at Leap Zone, we talk about brand DNA, and really that's with a business owner, that's really the personal DNA. So their
Mm.
core values. What are your decision makers? Right? Who do you choose to be friends with? Who do you choose not to be friends with? You
Mm.
talked about boundaries in your opening, right? And boundaries are super critical. The
Mm.
power of no is such an empowering word,
On
right?
both sides, being told no can also test your own boundaries, and you know, the recovering perfectionist thing we talk about often is practicing failure on whatever scale that looks like. And I always forget what book it was in, but someone suggests going into Starbucks and ordering a coffee and asking for a discount, because invariably the answer is going to be no. And it's not a life or death situation, no, but just getting taught that you can ask for something and be rejected and no one's going to die and it's going to be okay is kind of one of those steps, right? But it's also, yeah, like you said, with boundaries. And I feel like I've had this conversation a few times recently where um, going through the processes of startup and working with people in a business, in your own business, is it's almost an easier version of setting some boundaries. And when you set a boundary because you're being tested in something with your business, it actually has a really beautiful flow on effect to the rest of your life, right?
Mm-hmm. Because you just said the magic word, flow,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? When you honor yourself and you honor your boundaries, it helps to take the push out of the equation, that
Mm.
force,
Yeah.
right? And things just go,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Um,
You see it so often when, especially if it's a big, well, anything really, but especially when it's a big decision, as soon as you've made the decision and you've acted on it because there was some incongruency or misalignment or something that you sort of saw and then you couldn't unsee and you bloody well had to make like a change,
Right.
which is terrifying at the time. But as soon as you've made it, it's like you're instantly rewarded. There's always that, almost instant feedback, like you shut one door and 15 other ones open, right?
100%. Yeah. And it's almost becoming, I don't want to say cliche, that we talk about that, the universe presents itself, source presents opportunity, right? And it's like, and it's true. This happened to me literally a year ago. And I do this for a living, and it still amazes me sometimes when it happens. You know,
Yeah.
but when you honor yourself and you set those boundaries, and you close a door, yep, all of a sudden, boom, they open, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it's amazing, right?
Yeah, I think so as well. And I think, people talk about it in different ways. And one thing that I guess set in probably a couple of years, I can't even remember what happened, but it finally made sense to me, was this idea about being magnetic, which means if you're magnetic, you're also going to be repellent. But the more magnetic you are by being, kind of over the word, but authentic, and being actually sort of just standing in like, this is me, take it or leave it, like it or lump it, all the Australianisms I'm sure you've heard before. The more that you do that, it can be a bit scary because it is repellent to some people, but the people it's repellent to aren't supposed to be in your world anyway,
Correct.
And the more repellent you are to those people, the more attractive you are to the right people, whether it's friends, relationships, business networks, clients, that sort of thing. But it's really scary to take that first step to be, not all things to all people.
It is, and I think we're groomed by society, or groomed by expectation in our lives, that we always need to play nice in the sandbox, or
Right.
we need to
Get
associate.
along.
Yeah, right. And worth is being liked,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So how
yeah.
does that show up, especially for guys, James, with the likability? Like I know in Australia, especially, the tall poppy syndrome is all about staying within the status quo and not standing up too much and all that sort of thing. And certainly I use the term recovering perfectionist pretty interchangeable with being a people pleaser and being a yes girl, and having to be all things to all people and being a bit of a chameleon with all of that sort of thing. So how does it show up for guys, do you think?
You mean the recovering perfectionist mindset? Like,
Having to be a people pleaser and having to fit in
well,
and that
you
sort of thing.
know, I think the males in general, there's expectations that males have, just like
Sure.
females have, right? And I think what's happening now is, I talked about that kind of paradigm shift, and so there's a lot of males out there that are in this kind of purgatory
Mm,
of, they want to be more emotional, they want to be more emotionally accessible for their partners, for just in general. And
mm,
then they walk that fine line between the bro club and having like really heartfelt discussions, or being vulnerable. I
mm,
mean, and
yeah.
I think there's a real struggle going on right now with men. And it's good on the one hand that I see a lot of men engaging in these conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and more every day. I was just at an event this weekend, and I was surrounded by a bunch of amazing men that truly, their soul's on fire, and it's an amazing thing to see. Um, but and I don't like to say but, and there's a lot that we need more conversations. We need more men to step up like you're doing, and to champion like I am, to
Mm,
welcome them into the foray of of being consciously aware.
mm,
And I don't know, I can't speak for a woman, for you, Claire, but I would assume, I mean, most women would love to have more conscious males in the world
Mm,
showing up and doing their part and elevating the human condition. That's
yeah,
just my take.
yeah. I can high five you with that completely. High five, virtual high five across the seas. So something that makes me think of is there's a beautiful festival that I've gone to for the last 3 years running called Seven Sisters, which is down in Victoria. It's a women's only, or people who identify as women only, in terms of the staff, the organisers, and all of the attendees, and people who do the presentations and run the stalls and everything. And it is the most beautiful, connected,
Mm,
open, loving, safe, emotionally developmental. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. There's so much worth in that weekend. Even if you went back and pretended like it didn't happen, it's kind of the unseeable stuff, right? But when I was there, when I first went there, I was still married. I'm not anymore, but I was still married. And I also have a son. My first child's a son. He's 7.5 now. And I had this overwhelming, like, not sadness, but just almost like a disappointment. Like, I really wish there was something like this for men and boys, because, you know, at Seven Sisters, they encourage young women from about, I think, age 11 or 12 to come through and also, you know, experience that openness and the mentorship and the guidance and leadership from you know, women of all ages and that sort of thing. And I just thought, God, it's such a shame that there isn't something that I knew of at the time. There is now one, I think, that's being prepared, but for men. And I just think that's especially for men who don't necessarily want to walk around or don't feel safe to walk around in their everyday life in that sort of, you know, the consciousness and the openness, then at least there could be this safe container for a few days
yes.
where they can at least
Yeah.
practice that and start to get comfortable. I mean, 5 years ago, I would have probably gone to something like that and rolled my eyes and been like, what the hell is this, until I experienced it.
Mhm.
But, you know, it's I just think it's one of those things. And I, you know, having a son now, I'm so conscious, and I've got a son and a daughter, and I see my daughter, she'll be fine. There is so much about, you know, conscious women and empowerment for women and all of that sort of thing, that I almost look at my son and think, oh, you poor thing, you're going to be trampled on by all these amazingly strong women who, you know, have different sort of things. So yeah, I guess I'm really conscious of that, and I really welcome, and I'm surprised by being able to have conversations on that level with men. I'm used to having them with women now, but it's almost a surprise, and that's a real shame, because I know it's there, but there's like this stigma around, no, you've got to be the bro, you know, like you said.
Right. And it is a shame because even my close circle, those, you know, the people that I have these type of conversations that really light me up, they're, they're all women.
Right.
They're mostly all women, probably I don't know, 90%
Yeah.
of my close circle. And, you know, and I know that there's more men out there. It's just harder for me to, I mean, I don't, you know, not going to go fishing for friends to have beers with and have some, you know, heart-wrenching open discussions, but you know, it'll happen when it happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I just think it's a really interesting conversation to have. And you know, one thing that I guess has been on my radar the last 18 months since being single again, being back in the dating game, is, like I said, that having some of these conversations where almost a complete stranger kind of opens up to you about these things, but then in the real life situations, you're seeing a totally different person. And I think that's a real shame, but I think we all do it on some level, where obviously you fit in and you have the conversations with the people with whom you're confident and comfortable having those conversations. But it's about having the strength and the courage to look different to all of your peers by standing up and kind of like leading the way with them as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, you know, with a lot of the work that I've done on myself, it's the same. Like James Gardiner is the same, whether I'm in an interview, whether I'm on stage, whether I'm in a
Yeah.
Starbucks, whether I'm at the gym, whether I'm having a beer with a friend. It's the same, right?
Yeah.
And there's something it took a while to get there, and there's something very liberating about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just owning the fact that whatever you want to call conscious male, like for me, masculine, feminine, I have a perfect blend, whatever you want to call it, and I embellish in that. I love it. And then
Mm,
there's a sense of freedom now that I didn't have before with it. And
yeah.
I feel empowered. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's just empowering.
Yeah, I love it. And so one of the things you mentioned in in your bio is about being a conscious warrior, and you've mentioned the word conscious
Mm.
quite a few times. So tell me a bit more about that. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm almost, yeah, it's also my book, Conscious Warrior, Going
Okay.
All In with Love, and that's in its final stages right now. And
Wow.
I've lived a very, Claire, I've been very fortunate. I've lived a kind of an adventurous, I've always been a searcher, seeker life. I grew up in the East Coast of the States, then I lived in Manhattan and LA and
Wow.
Vancouver, and done a lot of things, and I've experienced a lot of stuff, including achievements in high level in rowing, in the sport of rowing, which I know is big in Australia as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I was always a warrior, like that. It was always had this warrior mindset, right? I get shit done, discipline, committed. Kind of like that balls out approach. Doesn't matter, right? And it was it was about three years ago now. I had what I call a jungle event, which is I was in the jungle. I went searching for myself, and I decided to walk away from my family, and so I kind of stripped myself of all societal expectations and what people say I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing and all this, and I just honored myself, and I went in the shit swamp for for a while, right, to do the deep work, and coming out of that is what landed for me is my inner truth, my real truth, and a state of grace. And
Mm.
so grace for me is love in all things, and leading with love. And so as I began that long trek back out of the jungle, I began to realize that I'm still a warrior, but now I'm a conscious warrior. So
Mm.
I kind of, my kind of internal intention, if you will, is a warrior mindset with angelic grace. That's kind of
Mm.
how I show up every day, and so that's what it means to me. Masculine, feminine, whatever it is,
Mm.
and um, it's just a state of acceptance, and honoring myself, and um, and just holding space for others and being of
Mm.
contribution.
Yeah.
It's that's what I'm here for.
I love it. We talk about the recovering perfectionist, and it can be a little triggering for a lot of people, because people say, often when I talk about being a recovering perfectionist, I'm met with things such as, oh, but I don't want to do things perfectly, but I still want to do a really good job. So, and I'm like, what? That's fine. I do as well. I have very high standards, and there's still certain aspects of perfectionism that serve me really well, and my inner perfectionist has some boundaries, and she's not allowed in my business, but she can polish the cutlery, or she can send the Christmas cards a month early. She's still got to have a purpose, right? And to me, uh, getting over the perfectionism and being a recovering perfectionist is kind of the same as what you're saying. So I still have intention and ambition, and I still want to serve, and I still want to show up, and I still want to feel fulfilled from the work that I'm doing, and also to fill the other cups of people that I'm working with and people that I interact with. But it's conscious, it's intentional, it's intentionally showing up, rather than just showing up and doing everything perfectly because I need that external validation. So to me, it's two different things, but like exactly what you said, with conscious
That is,
intention.
yeah, Claire, that's amazing, because that's exactly what I was going through my mind. And you just said external validation, and you know, leading up to this podcast, I'm thinking, okay, well, am I really a perfectionist? Have I ever been a perfectionist? And I'm like, okay, well, I've never really wanted to be paralyzed by perfection per
Yeah.
se, but I equated it to that. So
Mm.
I used to hustle and work and drive, all for a sense of self-worth, external in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether it was my rowing, right?
Yeah.
Whether it was my coaching, my status in having a TV show, whatever it was for a sense of self-worth, externally. And
Mm.
when I really discovered that about myself, and that kind of false sense of attention and whatever my issues were, my baggage. That's, I think, what that was me being a recovery perfectionist. It's
Yeah.
like now I mean I do it. I'm in front of people all the time, and but it's so everything comes in out now.
It's more aligned. Yeah.
It totally is. And
Mhm.
so it's everything is internal, and it's a being of service.
Mm.
And again, it goes to that flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess I always will be a recovering perfectionist, because I have to be reminded
Sure.
of that. Like, we never forget. I talk about this with my clients all the time. I don't forget, and just put it out of sight, out of mind,
Right.
the shit swamp that I went through to get to where I am. No, no,
Mm.
no. Like,
No.
it always will be there as a resonating catalyst for me to
Mm.
keep moving forward.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah. And it reminds me of something else that you said somewhere, which was about going from hard work to heart work, and putting
Mm,
in like there's lots of sort of analogies around that, but I really loved that phrase, that you can still, I mean, when I was an employee, I was a brilliant employee, and I would brag to people that I have never taken a sick day, and I wouldn't take a sick day until someone physically sent me home from the office because I was half dead but if they didn't do
right.
that, I was struggling through, and I would only get sick every couple of years, but I'd end up in hospital for 6 weeks because I was so sick. But that's how I showed up, and that's how I got the validation. And I would go through job interviews, and they always ask the question, what motivates you? And I would say, like, I love money, that's awesome, but I really, really, really like a pat on the back. If I've done something wrong, I'll
Mm,
put my hand up, but if I've done something right, I need some gratitude. And so that was kind of my thing. But now that I feel like the work that I do and the people who I work with and the things that I say no to is much more aligned to my gifts and what feels easy, and therefore it comes easy and it's easier to deliver and that sort of thing. I still put in the same effort, but it doesn't feel like it, right? So is that what you're talking about with hard work to heart work?
100%.
Right.
100%, right? And in rowing, we talk about the swing, right? So, you get it just becomes effortless, even though
Mm.
you're working your tail off, because everything's connected, and it just becomes this magical thing that
Mm.
in that sport doesn't happen every time you get in a boat, right? And it's the same here in business and in life. When we in that flow state, it's just a good place to be.
Mm.
And there's an acceptance. It's just a grace about it. I just find that, we're not forcing. I don't, for our business people out there, right? I don't like that. I don't want to be involved with that old world sweat equity. Let me work 16 hours a
Hustle.
day.
Yeah.
No. Why?
Go get a job. Work for someone else for 16 hours a day and probably get paid better. At least get your
Right?
holidays paid for.
Fuck. It's like, I mean, no, I want to live. I mean, I, I want to reconnect. I mean, part of my journey is reconnecting to little Jimmy, right? To my inner
Sure.
child
Yeah. Yeah.
from way back. And every day it's like, okay, this is my playground. What's
What are
what's
we
going to happen
playing
today, right?
today? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Curiosity and play have been a big theme for this year, I think. And given that most of what most people had planned went out the door, it's a beautiful opportunity to step into that and actually ask the questions like, what would happen if, or I wonder how, or that sort of thing. Because we've kind of, got this beautiful reminder that things aren't probably going to go according to plan all the time, right? So it's a good opportunity.
right, right. And I, just to harp on that for a second, that inner child thing. I was very fortunate enough to give a keynote this weekend in Vancouver, and I talked about that. I'm like, at some point, inevitably, all of us, we're in this big holding pattern, and there's this doorway ahead of us, and through that doorway is when real life starts, and it
Mm.
starts differently for other people. But when we walk through it, it's like all of a sudden we go in and we lose our innocence. It's like gone,
Mm.
right? And it's like all of a sudden, okay, well, I got to get a job. I got to do this. I got to save for retirement. I should get married now. I should have this many kids. I should drive this car.
Right.
And it's like, why, that doesn't have to be that way. There's no reason why we can't go back and reconnect to that kind of just that sense of wonder. And like you said,
Yeah.
like just that sense of play and work always. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah. Right.
Right?
And so, like for me, obviously having my kids who are 6 and 7 is also a really great opportunity, because I hear the words coming out of my mouth and I'm like, but I'm not living that. And whether it's about, go outside and spend some time in the sunshine, or what I'm like, why aren't I going outside and spending more time in the sunshine? Or go play with your Lego. I'm like, why don't I go and play? Which might mean reading a book rather than working or something. And I'm trying to live according to what I actually believe in, because that's what I'm always harping on about with the kids. So that's, one beautiful side effect of being a parent, I suppose. But what other kind of tips do you have for people who might be feeling like they're feeling a bit stuck, or they're not living in, the lifestyle or the whole space and that alignment that they want to be? Where do they start? Where do they start to kind of uncover and then move away from the shit and move towards the good stuff?
Right. Right. Well, each of us has a spark inside that's waiting to ignite, and for all of us it may be different, that what kind of lights that spark. For me, for a lot of people that I see, it there's usually a creative component
Yeah.
to it. So I think humans by nature, the majority of us, there's a creative hardwire pattern in us. Like there's something where we get a charge, we get an endorphin hit about, I want to do this, or wouldn't it be great to do that, and dream. Why not? So like when COVID verse hit, it was all about, this is your chance. Like you have a perfect opportunity to sit down and write day in and day out what lights your fire. Like get
Mm,
back to that wonder of, okay, what would make me happy, what would I want to do, you
yeah.
know um and getting clear, going back to getting crystal clear on that. And then it's simply, well, what would be one step to
Mm,
take?
yeah.
What would be the very next step? And for anyone listening to this, I would say your very first step is to have a consistent check in with yourself with a pen and a paper,
Yeah.
not on a keyboard, with a pen and a paper, to tangibly write down some things that perhaps have gotten away from your life, have
Yeah.
gotten out of your
Yeah.
life, right?
Yeah.
Um, what are things that you used to love to do? Um, what are things that you wish your partner would do, right?
Mm,
What are some of the music that lights your fire, right? Because what that does, Claire, is it's part of a winning ritual. So
yeah.
what you start to do is, when you have those things, then you start to kind of put together your little daily, okay, this is my utility belt for me, for my superhero mom to go to work. First,
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch a 20-minute video, or I'm gonna read 2 pages a day. I'm gonna put my music on to
Mm,
inspire me before I start something. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna breathe,
mm,
go out for a walk, whatever it is, right? Taking time for you is the best thing that you can do first,
mm.
to and then to build upon.
Yeah, oh, I couldn't agree more. And just connecting with exactly what it is that is misaligned and what you want to move towards. I find sometimes people are so in the murky whatever of this is shit that they can't even quite see what they want more of. It's just like, I just don't want this. So even sometimes connecting with what are the, I had a conversation with my best friend years ago about what would need to change. And my answer was everything. I couldn't
Mm.
even see what the good thing looked like. I just needed like nothing felt like it was working. And then listing out some of those things that weren't working helps you to clarify, like, what are the things, because usually it's not actually everything, right? But it gets really clear on the things that are specifically not fitting, which can be a bit of a scary thing, because once you've seen it, you can't unsee it and you have to make a change. It kind of it forces you to stare down your demons a little bit and make usually some decisions and some decent sort of changes. But yeah, I totally agree with the connecting to what you want more of. One of the biggest questions I ask my clients before we even start working together usually is, what are the three things that you want to spend more time doing in your business and in your personal life, but especially if you're looking at business. And someone asked me that about 4 or 5 years ago, and everything that I said were the things that I was giving the least amount of energy and time to. Well, I can't unsee that, so now I have to actually put the plans in. So I agree, like getting
Yeah.
clear and dreaming, and I feel like I schedule time in to lie on the couch and daydreaming about stuff, especially when I'm in a bit of a like stuck place, because I want to get clear on, if I could wave a magic wand, what would it actually look like, and being really clear on that sort of daydreaming part. I love it. And I was looking through, I do captain's orders, which is sort of similar to journaling, but it's obviously writing a heap of orders from your brain to yourself about
Yep.
how things actually are, but it's stating them as though they've already happened. And looking back from things that I was writing 18 months ago, I was looking at them going, holy shit, every single one of these things is now in my life consistently, from the place that I live in, the location, the city that I live in, how I spend my days, who I work with, how much money I make, all of those sort of things, because I was really crystal clear on like that was not negotiable. I didn't, as you said at the very beginning, I didn't know how I was going to get there. I had no idea, absolutely no idea, but that's what I wanted, and that's what bloody happened. Like it's so powerful, right?
Yeah.
So the whole dreaming and the intention setting and getting clear on that sort of thing. And then do you think the next part of that is actually, you've mentioned sort of breaking it down and just taking the next step and making small changes and, getting really micro on some of those planning things to actually come up?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I believe everything does need a plan. Most things need a plan. I mean, nothing is built without a blueprint, usually, in
Mm-hmm.
the world, right? There's a design. So at some point, there should be a strategy involved. And when we get clear on what we want, sometimes it's easy to then reverse engineer from that. So, I had one client recently that
Yeah.
she wanted to have a really hard discussion with her husband
Mm.
and move on in a different different way. So um, she got clear on that, and then she figured out when she wanted that to happen,
Sure. Yeah.
right? And then worked her way back. Okay, so this month is going to be this focus. I need to do this, and just that's the reverse engineering, and you can
Yeah.
take that right down to the micro level
Yeah.
into week 1, week 2, week 3 for business owners, right? Whatever
Yeah.
we're working on. But you touched on it, Claire. What the most important thing though is to really you need to prioritize.
Mm.
Um, like those big 3 things weren't the 3 things that you were focusing on, right?
Yeah.
Um, and understanding um, we call it a decision funnel, but having a way that you can assess, is anything, is this strategic alliance of business, is it a good fit,
Right.
what does it mean, like we take the steps through of this decision funnel,
Yeah.
right, to see if it's a hell yeah,
Yeah.
right, otherwise it's like meh, no, right,
Yeah.
and that's again about boundaries, right?
Yeah. It's about boundaries, and it's, to me, it also reeks of fear, i.e. perfectionism. Like, oh, I've got this goal and this is what I'm working towards, but oh, there's a shiny object over there. Maybe I'll go and do that. Because if they go and look at all the shiny objects, they're always derailed and distracted, but they've got a really good reason why they didn't do that thing.
They do.
Right?
I know.
A really nice, like, convenient distraction slash derailment kind of thing. And I think exactly, I think it's finding a bit of a balance between being open to opportunities, because sometimes they do come in and
Sure.
that they're right. Sometimes they come in and they literally are just a shiny object that was never going to be a good fit, was never going to move you towards your goals. And sometimes it's it's a process that you have to go through to get really sure and, okay, well, that definitely wasn't it. I'm definitely going back over here. And sometimes that's a good kind of test, I suppose. But yeah, I think, like you said, having the self-awareness and some of those tools, maybe it's an accountability buddy, a coach, a friend, someone who you trust implicitly to bounce these things off. And I'm so blessed that I've got a few of those in my life. We call them they have permission to shoot me with a water gun, and occasionally they'll see something that I'm doing online, or I'll say, hey, I'm going to do such and such, and I'll get a gif of someone shooting a water pistol at me. No, back on here, come on, we're over here. You know, some people who will just keep me on the straight and narrow.
That's good. I like that
I
idea.
think it's really important, and you know, with respect, sometimes I have to say, no, I know it looks like a shiny object, but I've gone through my process, and it is aligned, and I believe in the blah, blah, blah. Sometimes it still goes completely wrong, and that's okay. But yeah, I agree with you to have some sort of mechanisms in place that help you to make informed decisions about where you're going to spend your energy. Otherwise, that's where you end up doing the 16-hour days, making no money, having no time for friends, and actually...
And your focus is dissipated usually when that happens, right? And and ultimately, no matter what decision is, if it's business, if it's personal, and someone's wanting to start, you know, it's that age-old phrase: how do you eat an elephant? Well, just one bite at a time, right? Right? That's the way to do it. So you just gotta. Momentum is the greatest gift anybody can have. If we feel instinctively like we're making momentum on any task, we're good. When we feel like we're not making momentum, that's when we go cuckoo. Right? And we start to self-implode. So set yourself up for success. Don't sign up for a marathon if you've never run more than a mile, you know, or what I mean, be reasonable. Be reasonable about what your game plans are and work yourself up accordingly. Too many people don't set themselves up for success as efficiently as they could.
I agree. And I think,
well, that's why people like us are in business though too, right? I mean, right, ultimately, sometimes people need to have that objective outside of the picture frame viewpoint and coaching or advice, right? Or whatever it may be.
Just a sounding board sometimes, isn't it? And you know, I meet with my biz bestie once a week, and we have about 10 minutes each where we talk about what our focus is for the week. And so many times I go, this is what I'm going to do. And I've either picked off too much, and she's said, really? Yeah, fair enough. Let's go and take a few things off the to-do list this week. But often it's just going, I'm going to do this. And she's like, do you really think that's the problem? And, you know, you can actually have someone to sort of I mean, you've got to be picky, I think, about who you choose to do that it's not someone who doesn't know the ins and outs enough to be objective or to give, you know, decent advice in their own thing or whatever. But yeah, and I think, you know, setting milestones for those big goals, whether that just looks like just chunking it down and doing the first things and that sort of thing, but stopping and celebrating along the way. Like I've classically, as most of us are, especially, you know, when you've got your own business, you're kind of wearing all the hats and there's always something to do, that we tick something off, right, we're done, what's the next thing, move on to the next thing. But there's no time to stop and celebrate and reward ourselves and really kind of feel into like the success of it and do the coasting thing for a little while. Like, oh, that was amazing. Instead of striving 100% of the time, let's just coast and enjoy this for a bit.
Yes.
Right?
I love you. I love what you're saying, because it's so true, because I think we feel like we're not supposed to give ourselves a pat on the back, and we're not supposed to, you know, enjoy our success. No, we are. We are. And I love what you said about coasting. I talk about this all the time, and because of my athletic coaching and business coaching, it's like every high performance athlete has recovery weeks built into their training plan. Why? Because growth happens in the recovery phase. Adaptation happens, right? You're as you in business, as you go and your foot's on that gas, or life, or an athlete, right? Your residual fatigue begins to rise in the body, right? Right? And it's the same in business. And it's like schedule your down week. Schedule a time where your output goes down, and it's like, that's the coast, that's the recovery. And I swear to God, when people do it, it works. It works. You know,
big fan.
Getting them to understand that mindset is a huge thing. And even for people that aren't in business, it's about giving yourself permission, right? To take your foot off the gas.
Not be busy all the time.
No. No. And when you do that, when you honestly do that, you're more present
Hmm.
and you actually enjoy more, and then you come back to when the serious shit a lot better off and more equipped to handle the situations.
Yeah.
Yep.
I feel like we could just keep talking for the next 10 hours and probably still be really enthralled in this
We
conversation.
should. We should. Let's keep going. We'll
We
do an
should keep
overnighter.
it
We'll do
rolling.
an all day for you and an overnighter for me. There we
This
go.
is the 24-hour podcast. Just rock up and listen when you can.
That would be one hell of a show notes, let me
Oh,
tell
can
you.
you imagine? It's already going to be one hell of a show notes. Thank you so much. I've really, really dug this entire conversation and where it's gone and the ins and outs. And I think there's probably more conversations to come, but I'm sure there's going to be people scrambling to find more about you and your work and that sort of thing. So where's the best place for them to find you and connect?
Sure. Well, you can go to leapzonestrategies.com. I'm sure you'll post it in the
Link will be there.
in the comments and stuff. Yep. So leapzonestrategies.com. My page is on there. I have my own website page on there. You can find me on Facebook, James Gardiner. I welcome people into my world, and I'll also put a link there for some invites if anybody would like a clarity call with me, just to chat to see what an objective viewpoint might be able to help them and spur them on inspirationally wise. So I would welcome that, Claire, with your amazing audience.
Right.
And it was a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Awesome chatting. I really, really loved it. I loved that you were my first dude on the show. It was a
Yes.
beautiful conversation. So thank you so much for your amazing insights and some of the tips and the strategy and just the inspiration. It was awesome. So thank you again for coming on, and
Thanks,
thank you,
Claire.
beautiful Recovering Perfectionists, for listening or watching the show today. As always, if you love it, give us a rate and review, thumbs up, and share it with your friends. I'll speak to you next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye.